This is Franchise Today. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast.
Today is Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. I'm Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. Well, do you know what week this is? As I record this, it is week 25 of 2026. By the time you hear these words, we are quite likely at week 26 or beyond. Is it just me, or does anyone else wonder where the first half of this year went? Or, more to the point, how the first half of this year went by so quickly? It should come as no surprise, I guess, as week over week we keep hearing from guests who tell us that technology and AI have been the root cause of what I refer to as the Great Quickening, and the incredible step up in the pace of things we've already experienced during the first half of the year will dwarf by comparison to what's ahead for the balance of 26. So buckle up, enjoy the ride, and continue to pivot, adapt, reduce friction, and get in front of it all. Joe Malmuth said it best a few weeks ago. The changes ahead are exponential. The only decisions for us to make are which sides of those changes we choose to land on, and whether we're prepared for the consequences of those decisions, whatever they may be. What an exciting time it is to be alive and to be in franchising. This week, we talked with Heather Leed Neary, President and CEO of the iconic Taco John's restaurants, as we hone in on one of the most important questions that every franchisor should be able to ask and answer one way or another, and that is, do I really understand what it's like to sit in the franchisee's chair and successfully run this business at the unit level? My guest today does. Heather Leed Neary has spent her career on both sides of the franchising equation, from marketing at Auntie Anne's to Taco Bell operations, and now leading Taco John's as president and CEO. Heather Leed Neary brings a unique perspective to that role, one that combines both corporate leadership with real-world franchise operating experience. And as you'll hear, that perspective changes everything. Stick around. I'll introduce you to Heather on the other side of a very quick timeout. This is Franchise Today. I'm Stan Friedman. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
This portion of Franchise Today is brought to you by Zoracle, providers of spot-on profiles, the gold standard of assessment tools that assure you're selecting the right franchisees every time. Unlike DISC or others that simply gauge personality or communication styles, Zoracle's spot-on assessments are all franchise-specific and based upon 7 sciences that nail the results each and every time. Your prospects simply answer a few questions online, and like magic, Zoracle's algorithms scientifically slice, dice, and analyze their thresholds for risk, their business acumen, and even their propensity for single or multi-unit ownership. Zoracle's spot-on analysis is like having a crystal ball, but there's no hoodoo here. It's all based upon science that flawlessly determines franchisee, franchisor compatibility, and accurately predicts performance. Why don't you schedule a demo today and take a complimentary look and see for yourself? It's the closest thing to a sure thing. Zoracle, spot-on assessments based on science, but delivering results that seem simply magical. Check them out at www.zoracleprofiles.com. My guest today is Heather Leed Neary, President and CEO of Taco John's. Heather's franchising journey began with what was intended to be a short-term marketing stint at Auntie Anne's. Instead, it evolved into a remarkable career spanning more than 2 decades across some of franchising's most recognized brands. Along the way, Heather gained a unique perspective that few franchise executives ever really get to experience, and that is actually operating on the franchisee side of the business. That experience shaped Heather's view on leadership, operations, labor, profitability, and in the ultimate role that franchisors play, helping franchisees succeed. Today, she leads Taco John's, one of the restaurant industry's most recognizable regional brands, with more than 5 decades of history and a fiercely loyal customer base. Heather Leed Neary, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure having you join us today. It's becoming more and more evident to me that what used to seem like a very small and insular world where everybody knows everybody is becoming less and less the case anymore, because there are people like you who've been around for a number of years that somebody like me ought to have known you by now. And well, it just didn't work out that way because franchising is growing. And here we are meeting for the first time. So it's a pleasure to meet you, and hopefully down the road, someplace on the franchise trail, we'll get to smile in the same room together at the same time as well.
I'd like that, Stan, but now you make me sound old.
No, not old. There's a difference between old and seasoned. Certain things get better with age, and we don't have to talk about how many years, but look, it's like I've said to the audience week over week. We don't study to get into this business. We don't go to school to become executives in franchising. Something happens along the way. I looked at you on LinkedIn and I saw a Harvard School of Business graduate in finance. You didn't graduate to be a franchise or restaurant executive. So tell us what happened, when that happened, what were you doing when that happened? And we'll talk about it and much, much more as we progress.
Yeah. Well, my Harvard experience is limited to an executive education program. I do need to clarify that. My undergraduate degree is in English literature. And so I was going to either be a writer or I was going to be a teacher. And neither of those things panned out for me. And so I ended up in the marketing space. I was living in New York City. My husband was in the military and was going overseas for a year. So I decided to go back to my hometown in Pennsylvania for the year that he was going to be deployed. And I got a job in marketing at Auntie Anne's. And as we all know, Auntie Anne's is a large franchisor of lots and lots of pretzel shops all over the world, quite frankly. And I thought I would stay at Auntie Anne's for a year. And about halfway through the year, my husband and I were talking, and I said, something really special is happening here at Auntie Anne's. I'm really enjoying my time. I want to be part of it. And so when he came back from his deployment, he managed to get orders to Quantico, Virginia, and he commuted back and forth from Quantico to Pennsylvania until he could retire from the Marine Corps, which allowed me to grow in my career in franchising at Auntie Anne's. I progressed from marketing manager to director of marketing to CMO to overseeing all of marketing and operations to eventually president in 2015. I became president. And along the way, I got my MBA somewhere in there and love the franchising space. My Auntie Anne's franchisees are to this day, some of my dearest friends. And I talk to them all still very regularly. My Auntie Anne's colleagues, some of my favorite people in the world. I've brought some of them with me here to Taco John's, as a matter of fact. And Auntie Anne's was just a really special place. And it was great to learn about franchising in a space like that. And from a brand that was just such a great brand that really matched who I was as a person, my ideals, my values.
And what were you doing before Auntie Anne's? What role were you in and what kind of a business were you in?
I was working for an office supply manufacturer in New York. They manufactured office supplies and sold into companies like Walmart and Target and Office Depot and Staples and Office Max. And I was working as an assistant brand manager. The company's no longer in business. Those kind of products became a little bit passé in digital world, digital space that we're operating in now, and office supplies are less of a need that we have in our day-to-day operation because of the fact that so many things we do are digitally focused.
And at some point, I remember reading, too, that you were on the franchisee side for a large multi-flagged franchise group. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I left Auntie Anne's in 2020, at the end of 2020, and I took a role with KBP Brands. I took a role overseeing their Taco Bell business. KBP has 1,300 or so KFCs, Taco Bells, and Arby's locations around the U.S. I think they're the third or fourth largest franchisee in the country. It's a phenomenal experience. I thought it was really important for me to round out my franchising world by being an operator after spending 15 years at Auntie Anne's on the franchisor side.
What kind of enlightening aha moments did you have after being corporate for the entirety of your franchise career? How did it feel? And what kind of aha moments did you experience seeing through the eyes now of a franchisee, what life looked like from their point of view?
Yeah, I think my Auntie Anne's franchisees did a great job of helping me really understand their challenges as operators that they face in the day-to-day business. When I joined KBP, it was really just eye-opening for me how you have one restaurant, you have one set of challenges, you have 100 plus restaurants, you have 100 plus set of challenges. And I think it's important to remember that all the decisions a franchisor makes, those are multiplied when you get to the franchisee level, at the franchisee level. If you decide to mandate a new piece of equipment for $1,000, you have 100 restaurants. That became 100 restaurants times $1,000 each. That becomes a big expense. I think that was a really eye-opening piece for me. I think I joined KBP during COVID. And so we were dealing with a lot of labor challenges. We were dealing with a lot of finding people to work, finding people that wanted to come to work. Those were big challenges that my franchisees had talked about that now I was experiencing firsthand. And, any day in the day of the life of a restaurant operator is a challenge.
I think I remember learning early on that simplicity scales really, really well. Complexity, not so much. And even franchisors who think, well, it's just a little change, a little tweak, but you just articulated it so well. If you've got 80 or 90 franchisees, that little tweak is times 80 or 90. All of a sudden, your infrastructure needs to ramped up considerably to police and oversee the compliance that you need in order to keep the integrity of the brand secure.
Yeah.
And that's where so many franchisors fall off the rails.
Yes. Yeah, understanding that unit level economics, I think, was really helpful for me. I understood it, but to actually live it day in and day out was really eye-opening for me. I know one of the big projects I worked on at KBP was streamlining things like our music that we played in the restaurants and how much you could save when you're talking about over 1,000 restaurants. When you can negotiate with over 1,000 restaurants, you can really save a lot of money that way. Our trash and garbage hauling, that was a big opportunity for us to save money there. All those little pieces really help the franchisee to improve their profitability. And so those are things that we're trying to do here at Taco John's to really help our franchisees improve their profitability.
We're going to come back around to the Taco John's side, but what about some other highlights that were moments that you took from the experience on the Z side that you're benefiting from today back on the Zor side yet again? Are there things that really rocked the boat in any way, or was that experience already pretty well, as you said, baked in from your Auntie Anne's experience prior?
I think a lot of the experiences were just helping me codify what I knew to be true, what I'd heard to be true. The day-to-day labor challenges, we were building new restaurants, so new Taco Bell restaurants that we were building, and the challenges that came along with that when it comes to construction in a post-COVID world. It got a lot more expensive. Technology challenges. When your POS goes down and what that means to your restaurant and the profitability. And again, when you have one restaurant and you're relying on that restaurant to fund your family's mortgage payment, car payment, et cetera, and your POS goes down, that's a big problem. That's a big challenge. You need to have a stable technology platform.
So tell us again, how long did you stay on the Z side, and how did you and Taco John's find one another?
I was with Z side for about 3 years, enjoyed a lot of those experiences, learned a ton about myself and learned a ton about franchising. And then Taco John's, one of the members of the board here, I had worked with in the past, and he had been reaching out to me and saying Taco John's CEO was retiring. They were looking for somebody new. He had known me for many years and thought maybe this would be a good experience for me. I initially had said no because I wasn't planning to leave the franchisee side. But the more we talked, the more I realized maybe it was something I should explore a little bit more intentionally. And so here I am. It's been a little over 2 years.
Tell you what, let's do going into break. Why don't you give us a thumbnail of Taco John's, the history of the brand? I've never heard the expression before, West Mex. I've heard Tex-Mex for years, but I've heard West Mex when I hear about Taco John's. So a little flavor for the audience about the brand and its history. And then on the other side of the break, we'll dive into the role that you're playing now and the growth that you're projecting as we move forward through some crazy times in the crazy world we live in.
We do live in a crazy world, Stan. Taco John's has been around since 1969. It was founded by two gentlemen in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We are still family owned. The grandchildren and the daughter of those two founders are still our owners. They're still our ownership group. We have 300 plus units in the upper Midwest. We are West Mex, and West Mex means a little bit of a flair for Western food while incorporating some of the favorite Mexican flavors that we all know and love. We do make most of our food fresh in-house, so we make our taco shells from scratch. We make our ground beef from scratch, our taco beef. We're doing a lot of fresh pico de gallo, fresh guacamole, a lot of fresh ingredients that go into our restaurants. And we have a lot of second and third generation franchisees in our portfolio. And we really thrive in that upper Midwest small town footprint. Our vision here is to be the community's first choice for tacos and burritos And that word community is really critical because we do operate in a lot of small towns in the upper Midwest, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. I know I'm missing a few.
And I read a tagline somewhere that talked about your culture being one of compliance, community, and growth. And those are three essentials in any franchise business. And on the other side of a break, we're going to come back, dive into some of that about the values and the culture of the business, as well as the food and who it is that owns these successfully and who should. We're talking today with Heather Leed Neary, President and CEO of Taco John's. We're going to take a quick time out, but don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
This portion of Franchise Today is brought to you by Outreach Genius, the laziest and most powerful way to use voice AI to book more appointments. Outreach Genius is so simple to use, it almost feels illegal. Forget dashboards, endless forms, or hours of AI tutorials. With Outreach Genius, your franchisees can create, launch, and manage AI call agents entirely through WhatsApp or any text application. No prompts, no learning curve, no AI experience required. Your franchisees will simply text AI Genius telling them what their business does and what kind of calls they want handled. Inbound, outbound, or missed leads. And just like that, the agent goes live. Just recently launched, Outreach Genius is already making a difference. $100,000 in revived contracts for a flooring company, 19 cold leads converted in 12 days for a landscaping business, 98% fewer missed calls for a plumbing brand, saving them thousands. If you're a home service franchisor in plumbing, HVAC, roofing, painting, handyman services, landscaping, window cleaning, carpet cleaning, duct cleaning, gutters, exterminators, the list goes on and on. This is the fastest way to help your franchisees build rock-solid appointments right now. Want free access? Be one of the first 10 franchisors to visit OutreachGenius.ai to let them know you heard about them on Franchise Today. Outreach Genius will hook 'em. Your franchisees will book 'em. That's www.outreachgenius.ai. And we are back with Heather Leed Neary, President and CEO of Taco John's. We covered an awful lot of ground on the front end, Heather, but I want to ask you to come back and revisit the post-COVID world.
I wasn't here at Taco John's during COVID. I didn't join this brand until 2024. I think the bigger learning there, Stan, it was just really around the shift in labor and the shift in people that you have in your restaurants, what people value in terms of their personal time, what they value in terms of having a job. I think that's been a learning for a lot of us. I will call myself more mature leaders in the world. I was always driven when I was younger by a paycheck and making more money and the potential to make overtime. And we've got a lot of younger folks that work for us now that probably very wisely have a better perspective on life and are more focused on a balanced life that they might have. And so I think it's been a big learning for us in the QSR space when we're dealing with hourly workers to really create that employee value proposition to be, it's going to sound very, very basic, but things as simple as making sure that if you're still in high school, that we're offering flexibility to you so that you can continue to pursue the drama club that you're part of, or the choir, or the band, or you play football or soccer or baseball. I think it's important that we offer that flexibility. I also think it's important that we show our employees who maybe aren't interested in pursuing a formal education, like college, for example, it's important for us to show our employees what a path can look like to becoming a franchisee themselves. But even before becoming a franchisee, what does it mean to go from a crew member to a shift leader, to an assistant GM, to a GM, to maybe somebody that runs 3 or 4 restaurants, to somebody that runs an entire district? And how are we laying that out for them to show them that the restaurant industry is really an industry of opportunity?
That's awesome. Back in my days at Wing Zone, when I was part of the executive team, we put a leadership development program together with a path to ownership that helped people who would otherwise have had every essential tool that you'd want to find in an owner, but they didn't ever know where any money would come from to pay for that dream. And so we helped subsidize those opportunities with a path, and it was a huge help in the here and now. on the labor side, but it also helped us develop a team of like-minded people who we knew shared vision, values, and ethics. And it made for a better franchise opportunity for all of us when we could bring one through the keyhole that had been with us sitting in multiple seats over a period of time. I applaud companies that have that kind of vision, and clearly you do. How many franchisees do you know of that have come through that program at Taco John's?
Oh gosh, well, I've only been here for 2 years. We've had various parts of this program in place for quite a while. We've got some franchisees that have some different versions of it themselves in their own organization, where they're buying new restaurants and then giving part of the ownership and sweat equity to some of their GMs. I couldn't tell you how many exactly. That's a good question. I don't have the answer off the top of my head. We also did this at Auntie Anne's, and it was a really powerful program there too, to help franchisees really build the next generation of leaders in the community. It also shows that you don't have to have a formal academic career to really have a successful career as an individual who's an entrepreneur who really wants to make their own hours, make their own fortunes by learning and growing in the restaurant world. I think the restaurant industry is one of the more unique ones where you can start with a lot of grit and a lot of drive, and you can make anything happen for yourself. And I think that's so true of so many of the best leaders in the restaurant industry aren't folks that necessarily have really big degrees or really big college backgrounds, but they do have a lot of hard work and grit, and they know how to use that elbow grease to get the job done.
One last post-COVID question, which may or may not have been on your watch initially, but may have become part of things that mattered on your watch since. What about food eaten on and off premise and third-party delivery? How big a part of your life are those?
Yeah, I mean, the dining rooms have gotten smaller and smaller. A decent chunk of our business goes through the drive-through for us. And what doesn't go through the drive-through is often spent in the digital space, whether it's first party through our own app or through a service like a DoorDash or an Uber Eats. Those are table stakes at this point in the game. I think before COVID, those were things that were maybe nice to have, but COVID really accelerated the adoption of those platforms as something that is absolutely necessary because we have to be operating in the same spaces as our competitors.
It was a much simpler world when it was just pizza that went home in a box. And
how about it? Pick up a phone and order your large cheese pizza and call it a day. And now there's so many other options. But I think for us, it's created complexity in the business. That's for sure, because there's a whole accounting that has to be taken into consideration that needs to be looked at differently. There's also different methods of serving our guests. And that impression that we leave our guests is really important. You know, at Taco John's, we focus on quality, hospitality, and value. And hospitality looks a lot different if you're ordering it through DoorDash and never actually making a transaction at the restaurant itself. So it's really important for us that that DoorDash order is delivered to our Taco John's guests in a way that represents who we are as Taco John's and make sure that the food is fresh and hot and high quality, and it's delivered to you in a way that's presented in a hospitable way that really makes you remember Taco John's fondly. But we have a lot more channels now, right? We've got the drive-through. You can walk in and order. You can place an order on the Taco John's app. You can place an order through the DoorDash app or the Grubhub app or the Uber Eats app. You can order through catering. So I think I've just listed 7 different ways to interact with Taco John's. And each one of those comes with a different level of complexity that we didn't have just 10, 15 years ago. And that's created additional burden for our restaurant operators. So it's important for us as a franchisor to identify those challenges and do whatever we can to reduce as much friction as possible so that our franchisees and their team members can deliver a really hospitable experience with high quality food.
Frictionless has become a big word, and adaption's another big word in the franchise world because you can't expect things to work for you in the future the way they might have in the past. What are some of the tea leaves that you would read, Heather, as we are now in this AI world that we're in, and we are doing things at an exponential rate of growth? Things that might have a few months ago look like they may be years out, look like they're days or weeks out now. So how do you strategize and look 1 or 3 or 5 years out and make sense of it all?
Well, 5 years down the road, Stan, who even knows? Because that feels like an eternity. But I do think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, people come to restaurants not just to nourish their bodies, but to nourish their souls. And a big part of who we are as restaurant operators is providing that hospitality. And so I think we talk about making things frictionless. And I don't mean frictionless to the point that we don't have any interactions with you, but I mean frictionless to where we're delivering what you need from us, when you need it from us, and how you want it from us. And so I think, just remembering that we really do really well in small towns across the upper Midwest. Taco John's really has a lot of great human connections with those local folks in those local towns. A lot of our guests are regulars. They come every Tuesday for Taco Tuesday. They come every Wednesday morning for Wake Up Wednesday and get their burrito discounted price. We have a lot of folks that come with their kids. They make it part of their regular weekly visits. And I think that's an important part, is remembering that human interaction, that human touch. I think in this day and age, so much of what we do is through a screen on our phone. And I think there is some level of people who are looking to go backwards a little bit and reconnect with people in a really human, meaningful way. It might look a little different than it did 20 years ago, but that human interaction, we can't dismiss that. We've got to make sure that our restaurant operators are prepared to deliver that hospitality that our guests want from us.
What about in the world of benevolence? Franchising is so famous for giving back. Do you guys support national charity events, or do you leave those locally to your franchisees to determine what to do?
Yeah, we do a couple different things, Stan. So every year we do Nachos Navidad, and that's during the Christmas season. And each individual franchisee picks out their own local charity to support. And a portion of all sales from our nachos during the Christmas season go towards that local charity. We also, again, we're community focused. And so many of our franchisees do so many fundraisers. There's a lot of focus on family, a lot of focus on food insecurity. There's also a lot of focus on a lot of military communities, because we tend to operate in some areas that have a heavy military presence. And it's really important for us that we honor those men and women that are serving our country as well.
What percentage of your franchisees are multi-unit operators versus single unit, and who are you looking for on a go-forward basis?
I would say probably 75% of our franchisees are single unit operators, and the balance are multi-unit. I'm looking for a franchisee that has passion for the brand, that wants to live our values every day. And that person might only want to operate one location in Glendive, Montana, or I might want a franchisee that wants to operate multiple locations in the upper Midwest as well. I'm looking for the best person that can live our values every day, that can deliver great food. What we talk about at Taco John's is that our North Star is quality, and quality is hot, fresh West Mex food in a sparkling, clean restaurant served by the friendliest faces in town. And for me, that might mean a single unit operator in some cases, because we do have some more rural markets, or it could mean a multi-unit operator that has the bandwidth to expand across multiple geographic footprints.
Well said. What have I not asked you today, Heather, that you might wish I did?
What have you not asked me? Oh, gosh, that's a good question. Well, my favorite Taco John's item is the potato olays. And if you haven't had our potato olays, you're missing out. I also love a good crunchy taco. Today's Taco Tuesday. I'm not sure when this will be released, but Taco Tuesday is kind of one of our big days each week that we're excited about. And Taco John's in general is just a really great nostalgic brand that's 57 years old, and we are looking forward to the next 57 years. We're having a lot of fun working with our franchisees to make sure that we're serving our communities.
If I'm not mistaken, I think your brand coined the term Taco Tuesday and made that a household word.
We sure did.
Well, there you go. How about some contact info, Heather? There are going to be people who hear this and want to learn more, perhaps about a franchise, or perhaps more about you and or the brand. How do they find you again?
Yeah, Taco John's is online. We actually just relaunched our website in the last couple of weeks, which is exciting. And we are also on LinkedIn. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us tacojohns.com. You can find franchising opportunities there. We're also continuing to grow the brand. So if you live in the upper Midwest and you haven't visited us recently, I would encourage you to swing by and try some tacos and some potato olays. And we are looking forward to serving you in our restaurants.
Awesome. Well, Heather, the time just kind of blew right by, but I appreciate you coming, especially a little under the weather. We appreciate you stepping up and joining us today and sharing so much about this iconic brand.
Thank you, Stan. I really appreciated our time together.
Heather Leed Neary, President and CEO of Taco John's, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Next week, we swing over to the supplier side as I welcome franchise attorney Tom Spadia, perhaps the only franchise lawyer that can say he paid for law school at night by selling franchises during the day. This will be a fun conversation you'll surely not want to miss. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a colleague, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and it's okay with me too if you leave us a review. Until next time, I'm Stan Friedman, wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another episode of Franchise Today.